They sent me an email and I looked at the budget they had and I was like, what? That's how much for a half hour? Wow, I can do that. I was allowed to direct every episode. I was allowed to edit all scripts.
Okay.
I was like a showrunner. And I won't even say his name the way we say it anymore because this guy, Michelangelo.
Michelangelo.
Yeah, Michelangelo this, Michelangelo that.
Hello and welcome to Prolific Perspectives. This is Kamal Hassan, your host and founder of Prolific Animation Studio. We are all about exploring innovation, entrepreneurship, and how to be successful. Today we have an amazing guest, a seasoned producer, director, writer, Neil with us. Hey Neil, how are you?
I'm good. I'm great. How are you?
Pretty good. Pleasure to have you with us today. So Neil, give your brief introduction to our audience so they'll know about you.
Okay. History. Wow. I started out wanting to be an actor long ago, and actually in the 70s, early 80s, and I wound up in LA.
Okay.
But to survive, I got into editing and that type of thing. So I actually did a course. I studied it. I practiced it. Worked in real film, cutting, splicing, all that stuff as a trainee and worked my way up. And then I decided to go back to Canada, where I'm from, Vancouver, and I got more into acting. I even started coaching actors because as an editor, I kind of knew what would help an actor and what wouldn't. And then while coaching actors across Canada, actually, I was invited to go to various cities. And at one point, I met a Kenyan who wanted to take my class, took my class, and
Uh-huh.
she quit her job and all that stuff and
Uh-huh.
took more acting classes from me and told me at one point she wanted to change television in Kenya. And I
Wow.
thought, yeah, that's a good idea, I guess. I don't
Mm-hmm.
know. And make it better, right? So she kind of disappeared for a while, and then I got an email one day that said, Neil, I'm working on this project for Mnet, which is big, like a satellite company, and
In Africa.
basically cable for
Mm-hmm.
Africa, all over Africa, huge
Mm-hmm.
company. They're doing
Mm-hmm.
a series in Kenya, and they want the actors trained. So I said, okay, you want me to do it? Sure, I'll go. So I did. It was like, wow, Africa. I never thought of going there. Kenya, where's that exactly? So, typical North American response. And I went and had a great time. They gave me a trip to the Masai Mara, saw the migration of the wildebeest, all that stuff. It was amazing. And then
Mm-hmm.
she started producing and asked me to come and direct. So I started directing, and I directed for years, not only for her,
Mm-hmm.
but for others. And
Mm-hmm.
I got into producing. And while I was producing with a partner of mine, this subject of animation came up.
Okay, interesting.
And yeah, this is where the story gets good. She came to me one day and said, "Hey, there's a guy I know. He's like wants to do animation. What do you
Mm-hmm.
think?" And I said, "Well, I don't know, but I've heard that it's expensive, and how can we do it in Kenya? Like."
Mm-hmm.
And she said, "Well, they want to have a proposal, him and his business partner." So they sent me an email, and I looked at the budget they had, and I was like, "What? That's how much for a half hour? Wow, I can do that." So I thought, well, maybe
Mm-hmm.
Kenyan labor is less, and
Yeah.
it's not
Mm-hmm.
expensive as everywhere else, and so maybe this is okay. So
Mm-hmm.
had a meeting, and in the meeting, I said, okay, this is probably doable, but okay, so what do you
Uh-huh.
guys want? What do you want to make?
Mm-hmm.
And they looked, the two of them, there were two of them, a artist and a business
Mm-hmm.
guy,
Mm-hmm.
his partner. And they looked at me like, well, we thought you had something. And I'm like, what? You guys came to me. what are you talking about? And they're like, yeah, well, no, we don't really know. And I'm like, oh, okay. So on the spot, I thought of this name.
Hmm.
Like when I first got to Kenya in like 2010
Hmm.
and directing, the crew were making jokes and laughing about this name, Mock Mende, right?
Mark Monday.
What is that? Yeah, what's Mock Mende? What is that?
Uh-huh.
And they're like, that's a Kenyan superhero. I'm like, oh, okay. And that just sort of, I didn't
Hmm.
know anything else
Hmm.
at all. And so I said, why don't we do like Mock Mende? Who owns that?
Hmm.
Like, I heard of it. What is that? Who owns it? Does anybody own it?
Hmm.
So, we did a copyright search and a bunch of stuff, and nobody could find anybody owning it. And I didn't really know the history of it or anything like that. So we started on that trek, right?
Hmm.
Like creating sort of a superhero, Kenyan superhero. Well, we didn't get very far. We had a few drawings and I posted them on social media and I got this cease and desist. Like, oh, okay, somebody thinks they own it. Okay. So I looked into it a little more, and these musicians, a band, they had made a music video called that,
Okay.
and it was live action, and the guy, you know, wore a headband and did some karate, and so it was pretty limited. And I thought, well, we really don't need that name. And I'm
Uh-huh.
not going to develop a character like that. So
Hmm.
I changed the name and continued. But Mokmende, which is very interesting, this
Uh-huh.
word, I looked it up on the internet.
And McMandy is the superhero of that series, right?
Well, it wasn't a series, it was a song.
It was a song.
That
Okay.
was the name,
Uh-huh.
Mokmende, right? And
McMandy.
so
Uh-huh.
I looked it up, like where's this come from? And
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
in the 80s, Kenyans would watch Dirty Harry movies,
Mm-hmm.
and Clint Eastwood would say, "Make my day," with a,
My day.
and so Kenyans turned it into Mokmende, which is typical Kenyan, right? They're very funny people. Honestly, they
Hmm.
have a great sense of humor. So anyway, that was pretty interesting. Mokmende. So it basically meant
Hmm.
bravado, toughness, this kind of
Hmm.
thing.
Hmm.
And so I let them have that, and it's fine. So I changed the name to
Hmm.
Machismo, right? Somebody said it to me, and I thought, oh, that sounds cool. But then I found out after I developed it a while, the Europeans got very, whoa, that word's bad. That's like a, misogynist type character.
Okay.
Yeah, like it's
Uh-huh.
bad. So I was like, okay, we better not use that. So that was part of the evolution.
Hmm.
Anyway, as I went into it with this, he was a young guy, the artist, and
Hmm.
this businessman guy. I found out their budget was like a
Hmm.
tenth of what it should have been.
Hmm.
Quite a discovery as I went
Uh-huh.
through it, right?
Okay.
So I
Hmm.
kept putting out more money and more money and more money,
Hmm.
more time,
Hmm.
more money. It's like, oh my God, this is not what you said. But
Hmm.
I was determined to complete something, which I
Okay.
hold that as a motto.
Hmm.
Always complete something, no matter what.
You just brought up that when you were 16, we were talking about the early days, old days. So I want to brought up a few things here. That you were the actor for 20th Century Fox as well, featured in the A Team, sharing a scene with Liam Neeson and other notable acting credits, including roles in Watchmen and The French. So share your experience with those projects as well.
Well, I worked very hard to get into those productions.
Uh
I
huh.
must admit. It's not like I started in the
Hmm.
acting arena in Vancouver and working my
Hmm.
way up at a young
Hmm.
age. I really only got going at around, late 30s.
Uh huh.
So it took a lot of work, uh,
Hmm.
but I got these opportunities, right? Like that
Uh
casting director who cast me into the A Team
huh.
and do that
Uh huh.
scene with Liam.
Uh huh.
I swear I must have done 100 auditions for her easy and never got it. It was
Uh-huh. Mm-hmm.
quite something. But the memory, uh, the fact that it's on film,
Mm-hmm.
no one can take that away from me. The struggle that it took, nobody knows, but it was well worth it. Honestly, well worth it. Liam
Uh-huh.
was a great guy, soft-spoken, very
Uh-huh.
interested in me, what was going on with the industry there.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Lovely guy to work with. And same with all the other projects.
Mm-hmm.
You learn to work with like Zack Snyder, these great directors, Joe
Mm-hmm.
Carnahan, the A Team.
Mm-hmm.
They write and they direct. They write and they direct, and that also inspired me. Like write and direct, write and direct, write and
Right.
direct. I'm
Yeah.
like, yeah, yeah, yeah. This is it. This is where it
Mm-hmm.
is, and
Mm-hmm.
that's why I moved into that area, and still am on that track of.
So this all started, from inspiration from other actors and direct like Zack Snyder's and all. So you were, okay, absolutely. So Neil, having directed everything from medical dramas to superhero animations, what is your approach to storytelling, especially across such varied genres?
Well, the storytelling is interesting. It's all about
Mm-hmm.
a central character
Mm-hmm.
who has problems that he needs to solve. Some
Okay.
kind of exterior threat or
Mm-hmm.
interior threat, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
can't make a decision or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
That stops that person from an objective,
Uh-huh.
whatever that objective is. And
Mm-hmm.
that's basically what I incorporate into anything, whether it's 3 minutes long or you
Mm-hmm.
know 2 hours long or
Mm-hmm.
26 episodes long.
Okay.
So that's all in there. Those are the basics of storytelling, and you just have to make sure it's in there. And you got to have tension, right? People have to go, oh, what's going to happen next? And then what? And then what? And then what?
Mm-hmm.
From scene to
Mm-hmm.
scene. And so that's also a very big part of it. Yeah.
So you just mentioned that you met with that Kenyan lady and she asked you to produce that animation for you. So your upcoming animation series Maxus, and it's about an African schoolboy who becomes a superhero fighting inspired villain. What inspired you to create this series, and how do you hope it will connect with audience, especially in Africa?
Okay. Well, what inspired me was that
Mm-hmm.
Mock Man.
My day, make my day.
Yeah, make my day. And the other
Uh-huh.
thing was there were no African cartoons on television,
Yeah,
like none.
none.
And I often wondered about that, like why all they're watching is like SpongeBob
Mm-hmm.
and whatever, right? And
Mm-hmm.
what's his name? The anyway, the kid that gets the rings or something. Yeah, no, the watch thing. Boom. Uh,
Uh-huh.
yeah. So they're watching all these American things, or
Uh-huh.
maybe Australian or Canadian. I don't know, but nothing local, like nothing.
Yeah.
And so I thought that was kind of odd, and why not make something, like
Were you referring to that one? There were a lot of kids in their Captain Planet. They have the power in the rings. Were you referring to
no,
that
not
one?
that one. It was
Uh, uh,
what is the
uh.
name of it? I mean, they've
Mm-hmm.
made billions of dollars on merchandise and stuff. Because I even asked my Kenyan,
Uh-huh.
friends who have kids, right? Like, what
Mm-hmm.
do they watch? Oh, wow, they watch. I don't know why I can't think of the name, but they have the bedspread and the curtains and the pillows and the
Uh-huh.
backpack, this and
Uh-huh.
that, and it's
Mm-hmm.
all this American show. It's like
Oh,
there's no
okay.
hero
Mm-hmm.
for an African,
Mm-hmm.
and so I thought, well, this is a good trek to go on. And I had been there a while. Like I had worked in Kenya
Mm-hmm.
for 4 years by then, or five.
Mm-hmm.
And, I knew the people. I walked the streets. I worked in
Mm-hmm.
the villages. I've been all over. And
Okay.
and so I felt this was a good thing to do for the kids, and
Mm-hmm.
also to preserve uh stories
Okay.
that
Mm-hmm.
have been told for ages in Africa, and that this Maxis does that in a way that's different.
So apart from Makmande, like the guy, the superhero, what other characters we have in there? Like, what's the cast? What's the story? And if you can elaborate that more.
Well, it's school kids, right? They're like
Mm-hmm.
kind of have a Spider-Man influence in a way, but they're younger than him.
Okay.
Uh,
Okay.
but they're in school and they're
Mm-hmm.
bright kids.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to. It was important to me that the world could see African
Mm-hmm.
kids like they're
Mm-hmm.
not what you think. They're just
Mm-hmm.
ordinary smart kids, right?
Mm-hmm.
And these kids are, they're fairly well off, middle class. There's lots of
Okay.
middle class. Yeah, they're not
Mm-hmm.
living in the slum or anything like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I wanted to show that too. The mom is well educated. The grandpa, he's from the Maasai tribe,
Mm-hmm.
and he, used to be a kind of a nomadic person, which they still are
Mm-hmm.
there. But he's
Mm-hmm.
sort of given up on that. He's not doing that anymore. He lives with
Mm-hmm.
Max,
Uh-huh.
his mom,
Okay.
and he's the one that possesses
Mm-hmm.
this weapon called a rungu.
So Maxus is the name of his mom, McManda's mom.
No, no,
Uh,
Maxus. He's not called
Ma-
McMende. He's called Maxus. I got rid of the
okay. Okay.
McMende.
Okay. Okay. Okay.
I didn't
Uh-huh.
want to get into legal stuff. They didn't really own it, but I didn't want to get
Uh-huh.
into that
Okay.
because
Mm-hmm.
I felt I didn't need just a Kenyan audience, which you could
Mm-hmm.
get with McMende, right?
Yeah.
There's sort of a
Yeah.
following with that, kind of.
Yeah.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
but I didn't think it was beneficial to go through all that.
Mm-hmm. So it's been 9 years you have been working on the project, and the trailer is already out there. So when are you hoping to release the entire project or Maxus?
2026 late.
2 more years. So how many episodes are there in this series?
It's going to be a feature.
Feature 90 minutes movie.
I'm in the third draft right now, but yeah,
Okay.
it's there.
So the concepts, the scripts, and everything has been finalized. It's not. Is it in the production right now, or
No, no,
not yet? Okay.
I
Hmm.
have a I'm assembling. What I'm trying to do is attach people to it,
Okay.
and of
Okay.
course, money. So
Okay. Hmm.
I've attached an animation group in Nigeria,
Hmm.
very talented, and I have
Hmm.
that proof you saw that trailer that
Uh-huh.
they did that, but they're going to improve that even more. I have specific notes for them, which they then
Hmm.
showed me a short 10-second thing of how they can do it.
Hmm.
So that they're all set. That
Okay.
needs reinforcement because there's only like about 10 of
Hmm.
them. And we're going to
Hmm.
need about 80
Okay.
doing
Okay.
various things, although
Uh-huh.
AI will help a lot with this. Um, but that's in place. So what I'm working on is getting the voices. So I do have voices in the trailer. They're
Okay.
all Kenyan. Actually, one of them is Congolese, but the others are Kenyan,
Hmm.
and they're very good. They're actors. I like their voices. That's good. But I
Okay.
want a big name for the grandfather and for the
Okay.
mom.
Okay.
And there are some names out there of Kenyans.
So I will get to the other question here that you have got several other exciting projects in the pipeline, like Trouble, Death of the Dark Ages. Can you share a bit about what inspired these stories and what themes you're hoping to explore with them?
Okay. Um, I have like 4 or 5 titles in
Mm-hmm.
several that have scripts already.
Mm-hmm.
One is Blind Justice. It's a true story about a man in
Mm-hmm.
Kenya who was framed by
Mm-hmm.
a judge, actually,
Okay. Uh-huh.
and put on death row for like 19 years. And
Oh.
as a result of him writing a book while he was in prison and it getting to the Pope,
Mm-hmm.
he got out.
Oh.
So that's
Uh-huh.
that story. I've written that script based on his book
Mm-hmm.
and interviews with him and so on. So
So
that's
is it based on a true? Is it based on a true event?
oh yeah, it's all true.
Oh, oh, great. So could you please give us more insights about that story if you
Yeah,
can,
well,
if that's all right?
what it's about is this guy. He's a Kenyan
Uh-huh.
entrepreneur in
Mm-hmm.
the what they call
Mm-hmm.
shags, which is sort of like in the outer villages. He's in an area of Kenya called Kisii,
Okay.
and he and his partner are doing well. They have a furniture store that they make furniture with, and they
Mm-hmm.
want to expand, want to go into bicycle parts and stuff like this, right?
Okay.
Very, very human. And so they're
Mm-hmm.
like, okay, the partner's going to go to Nairobi to get the parts they need and open their
Mm-hmm.
shop. Well,
Mm-hmm.
on the way, and he gets sent out. In the
Mm-hmm.
meantime, uh, the main character who gets framed, he finds out that
Mm-hmm.
his father is selling land to this judge,
Oh.
and the way
Mm.
ancestral land. So the way it is in Kenya, you can't just sell it on your own. You have to get the family to agree. You can't
Oh.
just
Okay.
sell that land, even though he's the oldest person, the dad.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
He's not really allowed to do that. So the son, this guy, finds out and he
Mm-hmm.
says, "Oh, you should have told me. I can get you the money and then we don't have to sell it. So
Mm-hmm.
I'll fix this. I'll give you the money you need
Mm-hmm.
and I'll buy it back from this guy."
Oh. Okay.
Well, the judge wasn't wanting to do that. So
Mm-hmm.
while his partner is going out to Nairobi, he
Mm-hmm.
gets told at night, "Your partner has been in a severe accident. You need to go handle
Oh.
that, help him
Mm-hmm.
in at the hospital at this place. You need to go right now, right now, right now." And he's like, "I can't. I wait till in the early morning. I'll go."
Uh-huh.
He goes in the morning, and as so, this guy that told him was some cousin he hadn't seen in months or
Oh.
years, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
And so he goes off on this
Mm-hmm.
whatever to
Mm-hmm.
find out to help this guy. And as he's walking down this path, he gets mugged. He gets confronted by these
Wow.
guys, and they're basically hired killers.
Oh my God.
And they're about to kill him. But then
Mm-hmm.
another group, this is still dark, right? It's like at 5 in the morning in Kenya, it's dark.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
this other group comes along and says, "What are you guys doing?" And they start to say, you know, they change
Uh-huh.
their story. They go, "Oh, this guy's a thief and we need to like get rid of
Mm-hmm.
him and all this other stuff." Because, there are extrajudicial killings in Kenya about that. Like that still
Oh.
happens. If you get caught thieving
Yeah.
something,
Because I've seen a lot of things about, Kenya and Africa. They still have these problems. You're
yeah,
right.
yeah, that's right. So anyway,
Mm-hmm.
but these guys are like, "Well, I don't know. Your story sounds pretty thin. Well, we'll wait for the police." So then they
Mm-hmm.
basically arrest him based on these thugs saying he's a thief.
Oh.
And
Mm-hmm.
in Kenya, if you're a thief with a weapon, you get a death sentence. No questions asked. There's no bail, there's no nothing. If you're charged with that, you can't get bail. And if you get convicted, you go get to the hangman's noose. So
Mm-hmm.
the judge was all in control of this. So he almost got out at one point, and then the judge came by and gave everybody shit and threatened everybody else. He's like this
Mm-hmm.
monster guy. And
Uh-huh.
so he wound up in prison all that time. And through various close calls of getting out, but the fact that this judge was paying off people, even other judges,
Mm-hmm.
and he actually
Mm-hmm.
got kicked out of the judicial system, and he's still paying people off. And anyway, he wound
So
up.
after listening, a glimpse of the story of Maxus and this, the death of Dark Ages. So it's clear you have built a deep connection with Kenya through your work. What motivated you to dive into the Kenyan TV industry, and what's been the most rewarding part of bringing Kenyan stories to life?
What brought me to it was I was invited to go, and
Uh-huh.
it was an adventure for me.
Uh-huh.
Not only that, I got to
Mm-hmm.
do something I would not get the opportunity to do in North America at my stage of
Okay.
career. I
Mm-hmm.
was allowed to fully cast
Mm-hmm.
the series. I was allowed to direct every episode. I was allowed
Mm-hmm.
to edit all scripts. I I
Okay.
had I was like a showrunner, but
Okay. Mm-hmm.
I wasn't writing everything, and I wasn't at that writing stage, but I was pretty close to that. So that's something that most TV directors have, they don't get involved with. And
Yes, I,
most of
I
the
agree.
time, a pilot, which has the original casting,
Mm-hmm.
usually they hire a film director for that,
Yes,
not
they
a
do.
TV director.
Mm-hmm.
So
So it's the freedom. It's the freedom that brought you to into this. Okay,
The
you were
freedom and
doing
the
anything.
adventure of it all.
Uh-huh. Okay. So since we were talking about, Kenya, Nairobi, and all, so yeah, I was reading about you, and you spent a significant time in Nairobi directing over 159 episodes for Kenyan television. What was it like working in a different culture context, and did that experience influence your storytelling or directing approach?
Absolutely, it did. uh,
Uh-huh.
I'll tell you, I've seen
Mm-hmm.
places no North American has ever seen
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
through my work as a director. I mean, I
Mm-hmm.
even did like, for example, I was asked to do a voluntary video
Mm-hmm.
for a school
Mm-hmm.
uh, in one of the slums near the airport in Nairobi. This woman
Mm-hmm.
started the school, I forget how many
Mm-hmm.
years ago,
Mm-hmm.
with a handful of kids, and it now had 1,000. And when we walked in to do the filming, they were all singing to us and in their uniforms.
Uh-huh.
It was breathtaking. So,
Mm-hmm.
and then I got to interview the parents of a couple kids who excelled in their work and
Mm-hmm.
wanted to get funding for high school,
Okay.
and went into these one room
Mm-hmm.
metal shack places talking to the parents.
Mm-hmm.
It was, it changed me forever.
So I want to talk about another adventure of yours. Can you tell us about your experience directing under tight timelines, like creating over 2,000 pages of script for higher learning in 14 months? How did you handle that pace? Mm-hmm.
You have to be really good at scripts and with actors.
Mm-hmm.
There's no question about it because there's no time to fool around.
Mm-hmm.
And know how to set things up and when there's a good take, when there isn't. I had a good crew, believe it or not. My
Mm-hmm.
first 26 episodes, I had a South African DP
Mm-hmm.
named Marius. He was awesome, and
Mm-hmm.
I actually learned a lot from him. He was really good. And then,
Mm-hmm.
I knew what was required, right? Like, how do we get this all done? And
Mm-hmm.
and the appreciation of the actors,
Mm-hmm.
and the crew, and how long, like, there are no unions there. It's like
Mm-hmm.
there's no, like,
Mm-hmm.
oh yeah, after 4 hours we get a lunch break. Are you joking? It's like you go until there's a fair amount shot, and you'd go for like 7 hours and then have a break for like 20
Mm-hmm.
minutes, half hour, and back at it,
Mm-hmm.
right? And it
Uh-huh.
was very, very strenuous. What it did for me was build up my stamina,
Mm-hmm.
because that is a key to directing. You have to have quite a
Yeah.
bit of stamina to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I just saw how passion could drive people, because there's not a lot of money in it there either. It's not like people are getting rich. Uh,
Okay.
it,
Mm-hmm.
it's for the love of making these programs. The other thing I learned very quickly
Mm-hmm.
was the power of the medium,
Okay.
the power, how it affects people, the way people talk about it, uh,
Mm-hmm.
how they approach you. Once you have lots of film out there, it is
Yeah.
a responsibility,
It is indeed. It is indeed.
a
Yeah.
recognition of a responsibility that is
Mm-hmm.
very high up, because it actually shapes people's dreams and
Mm-hmm.
ideas and their futures.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, lastly, with everything you have achieved, what drives you to keep creating new stories and project? Is there a dream project you hope to accomplish?
Well, this Death of the Dark Ages, that's actually the title of
Mm-hmm.
one for the Renaissance, right?
Uh-huh.
And to me, I when I was 16, and this
Uh,
is I went on. There was this offering at my school, my high school
mm-hmm.
in the Vancouver area, and it
Mm-hmm.
was like, yeah, you can go on this trip to Europe,
Mm-hmm.
and wasn't very much money at the time, and
Mm-hmm.
yeah, my parents were like, yeah, we'll let you go. You go ahead. So we landed in Paris, took a train to Rome,
Uh-huh.
and we had a tour guide that was in love with Michelangelo. Like this guy admired Michelangelo so much. And I
Mhm.
won't even say his name the way we say it anymore because this
Uh-huh.
guy, Michelangelo, Michelangelo, Michelangelo,
Michelangelo.
Michelangelo this, Michelangelo that. And I was like,
Uh-huh.
wow, this is real love. I
Hmm.
feel it from this guy. Anyway, I was 16, rock and roll, long hair, whatever. And
Uh-huh.
believe it or not. And we walked into the St. Peter's Basilica and I saw this sculpting La Pieta, and it was like,
Hmm.
wow. I was just
Uh,
blown away. And
uh-huh.
and so to me, I was like later on in life, I was like, why did that happen? Why did I go to that place and see
Uh-huh.
that and have that
Uh-huh.
impression?
Uh-huh.
Totally changed me. And I was like, I need to write about it. I need to make a movie about that era and how
Hmm.
it changed, shaped society in the West mainly,
Uh,
but actually
yeah.
it's influenced the whole world for sure.
So thank you so much, Neil, in joining us today. And it was a pleasure having you with us. And I hope everybody enjoyed our insightful conversation. Thank you for tuning into another episode of Prolific Perspectives. We hope you enjoyed our insightful conversation with Neil Schell. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Stay tuned for more content. Until next time.